What's going on, everybody? Good evening. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and do this video now because for the moment things are quiet and I don't think things are going to stay quiet for long. It's the evening. It's very late on the East Coast. Most GMs are probably either asleep or about to go asleep. Maybe they're just getting done with dinner. I don't think anything big is going to happen now. I think we're chill for the moment. So it's peaceful. It's quiet. It's a good opportunity to make a video like this, and tomorrow things can happen, and we know for a fact that in 2 days things are going to happen because of the free agency. So let's go ahead and pump this out now. And this is going to be a video that I know some people won't understand. They won't get it. Like, I made a video a couple hours ago about Tyler Lockett in a very similar context, and I think pretty much everybody got it. If you watch that video, or even if you didn't watch that video but you're a Seahawks fan, you get that video. But I know there are going to be some people who don't get this one. And I can kind of understand why. I have made thank you videos for a handful of people over the last several years as a Seahawks YouTuber. I have made a thank you video for Russell Wilson when he left, for Bobby Wagner when he left the first time, for Pete Carroll when he was fired, and for Tyler Lockett now a couple of hours ago when he was released. And now I'm doing it for Geno Smith. And a lot of people are going to wonder, well, what's the equivalency here? Those other four guys were all Seahawks for at least a decade. All of them, except for Tyler Lockett, contributed to winning a Super Bowl. And Lockett, I think we all understand, has limited control over something like that. He just did the best that he could, and, come what may. I think people grasp that. I don't think anybody's out there resenting Tyler Lockett because he didn't win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. But Geno Smith is clearly not in that league. And they're right, he's not. He hasn't done as much for this team as those other people, Wilson, Wagner, Carroll, Lockett. But taking a completely different path. It is a different path for sure. He has earned my respect in a way not that dissimilar from the way those four guys did. And he has earned my admiration in a way not too dissimilar from the way those four others did. So, I understand that he was only here 5 years. He was only the starter for 3 years. And we didn't win a playoff game. But I believe that, number one, I think his story and the way in which he went about handling his business throughout his career and life is admirable and something that I admire as a person. And the way he was treated continues to just befuddle me and confuse me and disappoint me. And I look at him in a couple different ways. I think he is in many ways the misunderstood franchise quarterback. I think he is the accidental franchise quarterback. These are things that are very rare in this league. So here's the thing. Geno Smith, when he came into the league, when he came into the National Football League in, I think it was 2012, he was very bad and also very stupid. He was stupid in a way that other young football players are not. Like, on some level, most young football players are pretty stupid, right? Because they're young adults. They haven't had the opportunity to live life yet. Geno Smith was on the extreme end of that. He was a very bad quarterback, right? I mean, we can look at it, right? He was the starter for less than 2 years before losing his job. I think he lost his job to Ryan Fitzpatrick in New York. And, I mean, you can look at the numbers. You can look at the performance. It was bad. He struggled to complete passes. He struggled to read defenses. A ton of turnovers. There was nothing really defensible or actionable about anything that he was doing those 2 years he got to start in New York. And he got into garbage off the field. He got his jaw broken over a gambling debt with a teammate. I used to hang out on a message board for football's discussion, and Geno Smith's nickname on that message board when he was a Jet was Cat Piss. And I don't even remember why, but it made sense to us at the time. There was some reason why his nickname was Cat Piss. And the reason why I say that, just to emphasize the fact, this guy was a meme. This guy was like one of the guys that was your go-to to make fun of in the NFL for being a bad quarterback and a dummy. And after he left New York, supposedly it was over, right? And Geno Smith could have just decided, okay, I guess I'm just a career backup now. I'm going to carve out my vet min or vet min plus contracts wherever I go, and I'm just going to keep my head down and hopefully earn enough money to retire, and that's that. But he didn't do that. He learned. He decided he didn't want to be that idiot anymore. He decided he wanted to do everything he could to continue to have an NFL career of meaning. He learned from some of the better quarterbacks of his era, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, Eli Manning. He actually applied himself to try to become a better player and a better person, knowing that that second chance was probably never going to come. He knew that as a quarterback in the NFL, once you wash out the first time, very hard to get a second opportunity. And he barely played for years and years and years, backing up really good starting quarterbacks, but he didn't give up on that. He might have been putting in a lot of work in stuff that was not going to pay off. He might have been putting a lot of work into stuff that would have ultimately just resulted in nothing. Nobody would have known about it. Nobody would have gotten to see it. But he continued to put in the work. And when his opportunity came, and his opportunity came by kind of happenstance, but when it came, I mean, wow. Nobody could have seen that coming. If you are going to sit there, if anybody in the comment section right now wants to make a comment right now saying, oh, I knew back in 2019 or 2020 or 2016 or whatever year you want to pick out where Geno Smith was a backup quarterback, that I knew he was one day going to have a season so good he would actually get a league MVP vote by an actual AP voter, I'm going to say you're lying. I'm going to say you're making that up, and I'm going to say that you don't know, you're just yapping. All right? It was hard enough to imagine that he would ever be a starting quarterback then, but to elevate to the point where he would be a legitimate MVP vote getter, like not a PFF MVP vote getter, but like an AP MVP vote getter. I mean, that's I don't think we realize how wild that is because we watched it happen in real time. To us who watch things like that happen in real time, it feels normal because we're watching it happen. Like, how can it be that weird? It's happening. But weird things happen. So that part of him I find to be really admirable. I think that's a good lesson just as a human being. I think that any kind of a human being, you look at that, you look at the example that Geno set, where, again, not only did he become a better player, he became a better person. He stopped being the goofball that he was early in his career who kept getting in dumb situations that made him look bad. I think that's commendable. And beyond all that, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I'm probably never going to have to say it again because he's not here anymore. It will never make any sense to me why he absolutely positively could not get any credit or any respect from a significant portion of this fan base. I don't see this happening with other fan bases out there. I don't. I see other fan bases understand what their quarterback is or overrate what their quarterback is, but they respect what they have. The one exception might be the Dallas Cowboys, but for the most part, NFL fans, in my experience, are much more likely to overrate their quarterback than they are to underrate him, much less disrespect him. And that's another reason why I'm making this video. I feel bad for Geno Smith because I'm sure on some level he was aware that no matter what he did, the fan base just refused to like or respect him. And I don't really know why. Were the 3 years he was a starter here perfect? No. But we're talking about a guy here who had a 68.5% completion percentage. We're talking about a guy who won more games than he lost every season he was here, except for the first one, and that was only because he made the playoffs. If he didn't make the playoffs that year, it would have been a winning record technically. This is a guy who played through injuries. This is a guy who played behind other than the first half or 2/3 of 2022, a very bad offensive line. This is a guy who dealt with a very bad defense for 2 of those 3 years. This is a guy who worked with the offensive gurus of the caliber of Shane Waldron and Ryan Grubb. Like, it really does confuse me, and it does disappoint me that he was never able to get respect from a significant portion of this fan base. When the reality is, as somebody who watches football, who tries very hard to understand this stuff, who really, really tries to get into this stuff as much as I possibly can, and really try to get to the why and the how, there's not much that allowed this offense to move the ball at all these last 2 seasons. Geno Smith was reliably one of the few things that allowed us to move the ball these last 2 seasons, especially last year. Especially last year when we didn't have much of a running game. We didn't even really try to run the ball, and we had an offensive coordinator who was completely unable to make anything easier for the quarterback. The number of high difficulty throws he had to make, it was something that you were only seeing from the other top 3, top 4 quarterbacks in this league right now. And you look at what Jordan Love gets to do in Green Bay. You look at what Baker Mayfield gets to do in Tampa Bay. And it's night and day. And it makes me sad because we didn't get much of anything out of the Geno Smith era, and we absolutely could have. That first year he played for peanuts. The last couple years he's been on a contract that made him one of the more underpaid quarterbacks in the league, and you did nothing with that. And that's sick. That's gross. There's no other way to put it. You had an opportunity to build something special here around a legitimate veteran quarterback who is willing to play at a rate lower than the other veteran quarterbacks, and you accomplished nothing with it. You never fixed the offensive line. It took you until that third year to fix the defense, and it honestly took more like 2.5 years to fix that defense, and you never got him a legitimate offensive coordinator to help out. So I really don't know how else I can feel about this other than just I kind of feel bad for him. I do, because I think that he was doing everything that he could. I think that without his pinpoint accuracy, and trust me, guys, I don't say this lightly, and I mean no hyperbole when I say this. Without his remarkable accuracy, I don't know what this offense would have been the last few years, but I have a feeling it would have been an offense that would have really struggled to move the ball pretty much ever. I think the offense last year in particular would have looked much like it did in the second half of that Green Bay game with Sam Howell. I really don't know what to say about it other than that. And for that reason, I do feel bad for him, because I think a quarterback that goes out there, leaves it all on the field the way Geno Smith has done, and does everything he can to try to drag your team to relevancy, who does everything he can to try to make things look as good as they can, who overcomes poor protection, at times, I don't want to say bad, but certainly disappointing wide receiver play, and bad scheming and bad play calling, he should at least have the respect and the admiration of his fan base. Like, that's the thing that really confuses me, even after it being over. Like, people say, oh, he hasn't had some monster statistical season, right? He's never had a season where he's thrown, 35 or more touchdowns, so he's not good. I mean, Jordan Love hasn't had that season yet either. And then you got Blaine Gabbert. I think Blaine Gabbert had an almost 40 touchdown season one time. That didn't make him a good quarterback. And Packers fans, I don't see Packers fans dumping on Jordan Love. He hasn't won a playoff game, neither is Justin Herbert. And I don't see Chargers fans dumping on Herbert. I think Chargers fans think Herbert's a top 5 quarterback in the league. And he doesn't need to win a playoff game to do that. He just needs to be a good quarterback. You just hope that with him being a good quarterback, the playoff wins will come. He didn't make the playoffs the last 2 years, neither did Joe Burrow, and I don't see Bengals fans turning on him either. I think they worship Joe Burrow. And I'm not saying that Geno Smith is as good as Herbert or Burrow. I am saying he's as good as Love, probably better than Love, honestly. But regardless, my point is that it does bum me out a little bit. It does bum me out a little bit that the fan base could never do anything wrong. He could never do anything wrong. Anything he did wrong, everything that went wrong on the whole team became his fault. And I think that's gross. I think that reflects poorly on this fan base. And the last few years have been, I'll admit it, a little bit tough. A little bit hard for me to get through sometimes. Because, again, I don't see other fan bases doing this, but this fan base certainly did. So thank you, Geno Smith, It was a fun few years. Sorry we couldn't build you a better team. And look, he's going to the Raiders now. It's going to be, I guess, kind of easy to root for him because he's not in our conference. We don't have any draft picks from the Raiders. It's going to be, it's going to cost us very little to hope for the Raiders to do well. The only reason why we as Seahawks fans would not want the Raiders to do well would be number one. Well, okay, two reasons. One, you're an old guy, and you remember the Seahawks Raiders rivalry from the 90s, 80s, 70s, whatever. Or you're afraid that if things do go well in Vegas with Pete Carroll and now Geno Smith, we're going to look really stupid. That's really it. If you're a younger person or you don't care about ancient rivalries, that's really the main incentive you have for Geno Smith to not do well in Oakland or the Vegas Raiders. Because if he does, we're about to look stupid. All right, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. And yeah, I just had to do this, guys. I had to make this video because even though he wasn't here for a super long period of time, even though we didn't have great team success here, I have to give it to him for doing the best that he could in the situation that he was in, for conducting himself like a professional and trying everything that he could to make this passable in bad situations, and not getting a hell of a lot of credit for it from this fan base, which, again, I'm going to say it again, other quarterbacks in this league that can play, that are good, that can get it done, their fan bases don't treat them like that. For some reason, this one did. I don't know if it's something with this fan base. I don't know if it's something with Geno specifically, where some part of this fan base just didn't like him and nothing he ever did was going to be good enough for him. And as soon as we get another quarterback, everybody is going to go back to acting normal. I don't know what it is, but I wish it hadn't been that case. Even if he was to be traded right now, even if we were to trade him after this season anyway, would have been nice for the fan base to understand what they had. I called in this video earlier, I called him the accidental franchise quarterback because he was kind of willed out of nothing. And I also called him the misunderstood franchise quarterback because I don't think a good chunk of Seahawks fans understand how good he had to play to keep us where we were. I don't think that Seahawks fans really understand how good he had to be just for us to be mildly relevant. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Tomorrow's another day. We are moving on then.